The beginnings of birth control. Overview. When it first came into the market, it was advertised as a safe way for married women to treat menstrual disorders. Enovid was the first birth control on the market. Even though the actual ingredients of it were unknown, it was a clinically tested way to take control of reproductive health. No one truly realized how complex birth control would be, leading to some future issues. Margaret Sanger. Margaret Sanger was one of the most influential figures in the birth control movement. Sanger believed that women would never be free until they had the ability to control their own bodies. But her view on how birth control was used was very unethical, and if they were used today, she would be extremely criticized. She strongly supported eugenics, which is a theory that undesirable populations should be reduced or eliminated by controlling their breeding. She thought that non-white people, as she called it, should be prevented from reproducing. In her words, the undesirable group was the mentally and physically defective, and she argued that birth control could help wipe out the greatest present menace to civilization, which were people living in extreme poverty and those with mental illnesses and physical disabilities. The beginnings. So in her search for eliminating poverty, she met a guy named Gregory Pincus, who was a controversial biologist who studied mammal reproduction. She wanted to find a new method of birth control that would be cheap and easy to use discreetly. Strict state laws and regulations made it hard for anyone trying to conduct research on the subject of the female reproductive system. And people with the means to distribute the information were also not allowed to do so either. Gregory Pincus and John Rock. Together, Gregory Pincus and John Rock began working in secret to figure out if there was a way to use progesterone, which is a hormone produced by the body during pregnancy, to prevent it. After testing in the lab, it was discovered that it halted reproduction in rabbits and rats. Tests had not yet been run on women, so its effects on the human body were not yet known. In Massachusetts, where they were, these studies were not welcome, so Pincus would have been sent to jail if his research was discovered. He covered his true research by telling the women that he tested that it was a fertility trial and it produced no harm. This small group would not be enough to get the drug approved, so a broader test trial was necessary.
Now we want to talk about what actually happened. So American women were asked if they wanted to be on the trial, but they said no, because women in mainland USA were educated enough to know that a clinical trial involved multiple risks that were unknown, and they were not willing to be those people. And unfortunately, the Puerto Rican women, they were targeted because they were uneducated, poor, uninformed, and extremely vulnerable. Women who were having 2 kids had to have a sterilization surgery after that second child. And it was a terrifying experience, so anybody that wanted to avoid this, which was basically everybody, was willing to be in the study. And they were really targeted, and it was just a really horrible thing to do. And obviously, as you see in the pictures I've put on here, these women are not living well already, so how would they know that this type of trial could have anything bad, or that anybody could be out to get them or anything like that? So when the women started taking it, they were only told that it would prevent pregnancy, but they were not told about any possible side effects. They had no idea that the nausea they were feeling or the blood clots that they were having to go to the doctor for could have been caused by this trial. There was no informed consent. There was not even you may experience some risks, but we don't know what they are yet. There was none of that. But when the women did go see the doctor, they were basically noted as unreliable, and the side effects were just put aside. Nobody cared, which is incredibly alarming, because how are you going to have a clinical trial not take any notes about what could possibly happen? And the side effects were absolutely real. Women were suffering from depression, nausea, all the other side effects that are listed on the screen. And it's obvious that it was from the trial, because too many of the women were experiencing the same things, going through the same things, for it to just be random. Now we know that the amount of the hormone that they used back then was much higher than what is used today. And so the side effects were just more common and they were more severe, and it was just really painful for those women. And actually 3 people in the trial died, but it's impossible for us to know if it was from the pill or if it was like an underlying cause that they just didn't know that they had, but there's no way of us to know. So after Pincus had been doing these studies and doing whatever he was doing, giving women pills that he was just ignoring anything bad about them, he said that his results were 100%. Because, yeah, the women were not getting pregnant, and that was his ultimate goal. They were not getting pregnant. All right, so that's extremely unethical to say because, yeah, they work, but look at all the side effects they were getting. But besides the point, he did not think that the population that he had was enough. So his unethical practices kept growing. And so he went to asylums, and he started testing women and men as well on this drug just to see if it would work. And it did. It was approved in 1957, and American women went crazy. They couldn't believe that there was finally a way for them to control their body. And yeah, it was a breakthrough if you didn't know about the side effects, which they didn't because nobody wrote it down. Nobody said anything about it. And it's ironic because nothing did change. And then all of a sudden, these women had no problem taking the pill, and they didn't care about what might have happened. They really didn't know. What we wanted to talk about overall was how racist policies and practices had the impact that they had on the relationship between people in the community and their access to medicine. So some people do choose their primary doctor based on race. However, more related to our case, doctors tend to sometimes choose not to serve or to serve certain people. So in our case, the doctors chose to treat and give the medicine to these poor, uneducated, vulnerable, scared women because they knew that they would say yes. And that's extremely unethical. It's just a horrible thing that happened. And any situation like this is going to cause a divide and a distrust between the people, the community, and just the medical field in general. And people from Puerto Rico might still be skeptical, and I believe that they probably are. I mean, I would be too. To go on a clinical trial and not know what's going to happen, I mean, what's going to stop them from thinking that that can't happen again? Because it absolutely could. And while it sounded like a wonderful idea, they were going to have the access to the medicine, they were going to get it first, and they were going to be able to not have the problems that their family had to go through. It ended up being abuse, and they were test subjects without even knowing. So, yeah, there was definitely a huge impact.